if you have been coming off of your psychiatric medication and you have been feeling some horrible symptoms that come and go, and you want to understand why is it that sometimes I am having these symptoms and sometimes I'm doing better, please stay tuned for my video because I'm going to share with you just some of what's happening in your brain of why you're having that pattern of going from more symptoms to less symptoms, and what's really happening in your brain through that healing process. This kind of explains that window wave pattern of going from that, like, okay, I'm doing better, I can handle more things, to like that end of the world crisis, dump feeling that comes in a wave when it feels like everything seems impossible. So just stay tuned. I'm going to share with you some of what's happening in your brain if that's what you're experiencing in withdrawal. Some people do not have windows. They just feel horrible through the healing process. And that doesn't mean that you're not healing. It just means that you're having a lot of waves and it's been pretty intense. But you can still heal through this process. And I'm also going to talk about how to recognize a window and how to name it and how to embrace it. So if you're wondering like how to even recognize what's going on, and how to like cultivate that healing, I'm going to talk about that too. So my name's Joanna. I went through a horrible psychiatric drug withdrawal that took several years to heal from, and I've healed and come out the other side. And I'm here just to offer my story of hope and also just the things I've learned along the way. And I also meet with people one-on-one or in groups for support and encouragement in the healing process, because there's just so little support for this. So if you're interested in that kind of support or connecting with me, just check out the link in the video description, and I would love to connect with you. So let's dive in talking about what's happening in the window wave process. And I learned this from Mark Horowitz, and also I learned it when I did training in addiction recovery, interestingly enough. So what's happening in your brain is there's two healing parts, okay? There's the production of the happy chemicals, the natural happy chemicals like your dopamine, your serotonin, endorphins, like any of these sort of like happy regulating chemical production that just happens naturally in the human body, and keeps us regulated. That production actually goes down when you're on a medication, because what happens is the medication produces these chemicals, or, gives the chemicals to our bodies. And then our body says, oh, there's no demand for this anymore. Let's produce less so we don't have this oversupply. And so then your body downshifts its production. It's like, cease production, oversupply, too much, slow it down. And so then your body is only making a small amount and gets used to doing that. And so that production side is the one side that is like going through major change. And think of it as like a staffing problem. It's like, oh my gosh, we actually have to produce so much more. We have to up our production. We have to change our staffing. We have to like make more dopamine. We have to make more serotonin. We've got to make more endorphins. Let's figure out how to do that again. And so like your body is like in this production crisis trying to figure that out. And then on the other end is the receptors. And that's like the receiving end of the happy chemicals that like integrates them into your body and brain. So on the receptors end, what can happen in the withdrawal process is that stress on the body and that change can actually cut off the receptors, even sever them. So it's like what used to be this like tree with branches becomes just like this little stick, and it's just like not even receiving. And so you've got this very slow production of just like this tiny little bit, and maybe even that's like so minimal. And that's when you have so many waves. Like you may be like, if you're in acute phase, like I'm having no windows, and that's that sort of crisis of production and then crisis of receptors. And then what happens in the healing process, and this is natural and it's built into your DNA and it is happening, is that whole production system figures out how to produce more. And so then it has more of these happy chemicals coming. And then the receptors grow. And so then they're able to receive, those packages and like deliver them and take them in, integrate. But at first, it's like that production it's spotty. It's like not consistent. It's not steady and regular and like fully sufficient for what your whole body needs. And so it may be like, oh, there's a little trickle, and you like your receptor received it, and then you like have a window for an hour and you're like, oh my gosh, maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe I actually can heal. Maybe I'm actually going to make a painting someday, or maybe I'll go back to work. And the whole world is starting to look different. And then like that was it. You go right back into a wave and you're like, oh my gosh, that was so disorienting. It almost made this wave worse. Like now I feel worse than I did, and then that's just like that supply and demand is not fully online yet. And so all of that has to heal, all of that production increases through your healing process. It's like your body figures out how to make all of that again on its own. And then your receptors, they heal and they regrow. So what was like one little stick that couldn't receive much becomes 2, becomes 3, becomes 4. Like it becomes more of a full tree that can just, and then with healing, what happens is that production becomes sufficient and the receptors are able to take everything in. And so that's what people experience. And sometimes it takes a long time. And just because you're having very few windows, or those windows are like really brief and really small, doesn't mean that the healing isn't happening. If you think of it as like a plant that its DNA is to grow, and if it has sunshine, if it has soil, if it has, the water it needs, it's just going to grow. You can't necessarily speed it up and be like, grow faster, plant, or, grow more leaves on the tree. It's just going to grow at its own pace. And like all we can do is like provide it with that nurture. And so in your healing process, just know like it's in your DNA to heal. It is built in you to recover from significant injury. And so that's happening. And all your job is to just provide the nurture for it and to give it the time, and it's going to happen. And so that nurture, part of that nurture is just the time itself, and things like acceptance and seeking what regulating you can do for your nervous system, and just your coping strategies, and any kind of healthy things that you can do, rest, and care for your body. This is a time of slowing down and caring for your body and honoring your body's process of healing. And that healing will happen. And you kind of have to like lean into the process and accept the healing process as it's coming to you. And that can be some of the hardest part, is that acceptance of how long this can take. But my encouragement to you is that it is happening, and that whole healing of the receptors, healing of the production of the chemicals in your body is happening. And when you have those windows, that's your picture of normal. And so that's the good news, is that as you heal, you're going to get more of that in your life. And when you're on the other side of that, your life is going to be like, oh my gosh, how did I get like such a good deal on life that I get to live in windows? And so that's what you're headed for, is that healing, but it does take time, and we have to be patient with the process. And that's the other thing I wanted to share with you, is just like how to recognize a window. And some of the wonderful people I get to work with have come up with some great ways of describing their window wave process. So some of it that I've heard is like having a severe wave having a lesser wave. And so that's like when you're in a wave, but it's like not as intense, like you're sort of muddling through. And then having a dirty window would be like, oh, I'm able to function some and have some clarity, but I'm still having some symptoms and I don't feel 100%. And so that would be like a dirty window. And then that can get like dirtier, or it can get clearer. And so then like a clear window is like having less of those symptoms. And then like a totally clear window would be like, wow, I feel 100%. I'm able to think so much more clearly and be productive, and I feel like normal. So that would be like a clear window. And through a lot of this process, there's a lot of latitude between those of like, okay, I'm just living in a dirty window for days, and I'm not like out of my symptoms, but I am able to function. But is this as good as it gets? And some of that. And then, or sometimes just like being in that like medium bad wave where it's like not totally acute, where you're like afraid of jumping out a window, but you're feeling horrible and like maybe there's just not any hopeful thing you can think about for your future. So that kind of is, some of the language that I've heard in the community, and that's been helpful to me, and that can help kind of describe some of that like window and wave pattern. And one thing that's really important is to notice when you have a bit of a shift. Like notice the positive can actually help in your healing, and being able to mark it and embrace it can help in that brain retraining and allow yourself to like fully enjoy when you do get that 20-minute window or whatever it is, like lean in full tilt. So one of the things like I encourage people to do is think of anything positive that they can in that window, and like of reframing their life, or of, dreaming of the future, or enjoying an activity, or enjoying a family member. Like just let yourself fully enjoy that window without having to like work on yourself and work on your problems. Because the thing is, so much of your problems are just going to resolve naturally as you heal through this process, because a lot of this is an internal healing job and isn't necessarily something you have to like go out and fix. But as you heal, your perspective is going to heal, your interpretations, your perspective of yourself and your life, just your outlook, your energy, your symptoms, your body symptoms, and your emotional, psychological symptoms, like those heal just naturally through this process. So I just encourage you to embrace any part of positive when it does come, and lean into it and relish it, and then even write it down and try to remember it, like, oh, remember I was in this window and I thought these things about the future. I can't believe that right now, but I thought that in a window. So maybe that's the true perspective. So just like giving yourself that room to believe the window you as the true you, and really let yourself lean into that window, and use it as like a reference point. For even when you're in a wave, and you may even forget. And that's the weird part of this, is that like, it's almost like we forget the window when we're in a wave, and we can forget the wave when we're in a window. And that's because of like that state-based recall of like, when you're in a state, you can remember the other times of being in that state. And these states of mind just feel so severe. There can just seem like this huge difference between the two, and you almost can't recall. Ultimately, that's good news, because when you heal, you won't be spending a lot of time remembering the worst stuff, because you'll be in that positive place in your mind. And so that's the good news part of that. But yeah, and those are just some of the things that I've learned from others in the healing journey. And I just want to share them with you to encourage you that, this really will heal in time. And if you would like to connect with others as part of your healing journey, I would love to meet with you. Or you can join one of our groups, which can be just such a gift in the healing process to hear other people, to see their faces, hear their voices, and know there are other people also coming through this and healing, and you aren't alone. So just take heart and just know that you really aren't alone, and we're cheering you on in your healing. Okay, bye.